Hello everybody, this is Media Magpie Ka-pow, and my name is Monster Teacher, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to format a PowerPoint presentation. So, presentations are common assessment items these days. They're used in many academic contexts. They're also used in businesses, and they are a good way to explain ideas to a large group of people. They're being used to communicate over the internet, and they really are a modern day form of storytelling. And I tell my students that good PowerPoint presentations tell a story. And even though they may not know how to use PowerPoint or computers as well as other people, many cultures all around the world have stories which humans have enjoyed for a long time. So it's important, like many other stories, to follow some of the same rules that happen in them. So this presentation is not going to be about how to use PowerPoint. I might do something about that later. It's going to be more about formatting your PowerPoint once you start to make it. So here's a question for my students and anyone else interested. What do you do first? Did you say choose your topic, brainstorm your idea, make a plan? Plans are important. Make a plan. Choose your headings, research your topic, adjust your plan as necessary. Next, we're going to start working on the PowerPoint. Our first slide is the title page. You may remember this presentation also had a title page. The second is your introduction. Then you have slides that make up the body of what you'll be talking about. So they could be anywhere between 3, 5, 7 slides, depends on how long you are going. I think anything over 15 slides is getting way too long. You need to cut it down. After the body, you have a conclusion, and then you give your references. So, first thing up is the title page. So as you can see by my example of the previous one I made, I have my topic. Then I have my name, and in other presentations you might have your student number or some other identification number or something, especially if you're in a big class or studying online or something where the teacher needs to know exactly who you are. And an option is you can have a picture or something fun on the cover as well, just to capture the audience's attention. Our next slide is the introduction. So the introduction should explain first it should introduce the topic, should explain why the topic is interesting, why the audience should care, give some background information, and explain what the presentation is going to be about. This isn't a great example of a presentation. However, you can see that I have a picture, I have a heading, and I have some information. When doing your introduction, there's some options that you can choose from. You can have a picture or a diagram, something not too complex. You don't want to scare people off, but just something that's interesting that will capture people's attention. If you want, you can have a quote, especially a famous quote that is relevant to your topic, or an interesting fact, or ask the audience a question about the topic, something that relates to them, because a lot of people love talking about themselves. So if you ask a question about themselves, they immediately become engaged. Or if you can find some other interesting information or some picture or something, anything that is interesting, funny, or startling about the topic. But remember, and really this is a general rule for all of your slides, that you should put your information in point form using bullet points, as I have done, those blue dots down the page. Try not to use more than 50 words per page because it gets too wordy. I know that I have sometimes broken that rule, but just as a general rule of thumb. Try not to use more than 3 pictures. I think 1 or 2 pictures is enough. 3 looks too cluttered. I mean, you can get away with it. Depends on the picture, of course, but if they're just simple objects or whether you're listing off things, it's up to you, but really you've got to have a good reason to go over 3, otherwise don't do it. Make sure the text size is easy to read, that the font is not too difficult. You know, some of them can get curly and very creative and artistic, but they're quite hard to read. So often a simple font will communicate your point much better than some kind of fancy handwritten, you know, sort of calligraphy style that, you know, is just too difficult to read. Make sure the font is also big enough so that people at the back of the room can read it. So then, now we're moving on to the body. So after the introduction, you'll have the body. You won't actually have a heading that says body. You'll just go straight into it. And really, what you need to do is decide what headings you're going to have. The headings should describe the main points of your presentation, and it's good to have one heading per page, or you can, if you have a very big topic, main point to talk about, that has lots of ins and outs and is quite complex, you may need 2 slides. I wouldn't go over 2 slides, 3 at the absolute most, and you would have to have a very good reason for going 3, but I would say 1 or 2 is good. You can put 2 headings on 1 page if they're only very small. So it's up to you to sort of take some sort of artistic decision about this, and what looks good, and whether your audience can follow what you're doing. And the other thing is to make sure that headings make logical sense, that they follow a sequence. So, you know, we're starting at the start and we finish at the finish. We don't sort of like go off on tangents and then suddenly, you know, flash over to somewhere else where it doesn't make sense how we got there. An example of this would be, you know, when you're talking about a disease, you usually talk about the cause first before the effect, you know, and then the treatment, because that's usually you get the disease, then you have the bad things happen, and then you find treatment. So that follows a logical sequence, and so you should make sure that as much as possible your headings also follow some kind of logic. So headings are actually very difficult for some of my students, and they have problems working out what they're going to do. So I thought I would give some examples. Here's one for a country. In this case it's Afghanistan. The other one is for disease. In this case it's leukemia. But, you know, those headings could be used for almost any country, really. And you could add more if you were at, you know, you could add people, language, you could add religion to the country, the disease. I don't know how much more you could add like that. It would depend on the disease. Maybe a history of it. Maybe some sort of information about where it happened in the world more often or something like that. Going over, here's another example. So I've looked at the Burmese New Year Water Festival, which I have been in while I was in Myanmar. It's a great day if you like walking around soaking wet for 3 or 4 days. But you can see here, here are some things that you can use if you're going to write about a festival. Festivals are very different, so obviously there's going to be a lot of changes there, but you know, there's always going to be introduction, always going to be conclusion, probably a history or some kind of contextual thing, some kind of description of what goes on, some kind of description of what is significant about it. Then say if you want to do a contemporary social issue, which is always interesting. In this case, I've chosen big game trophy hunting, so you can see how I have broken that up into different headings. It's up to you to make the decisions exactly what you want to do, but these are just some of my ideas to help you. So after the body's finished, we've got to put in a conclusion. The example conclusion that I have there is not a fantastic one, I know that, because that was just something quickly I was doing as an example of a recipe. If I was doing an academic topic as a report, I would put a lot more information there. Really, you should summarize your main points and remind the people what they've been told. So, academic writing often tells people what it's going to say in the introduction, then it says it in the body, and then it tells people what it just said in the conclusion. Make sure you don't add any new information into the conclusion. Conclusions can be a bit tricky. They're almost like introductions backwards, and there are some things you can do, such as having a concluding sentence and a final thought or a prediction of the future or pointing out holes in the research. That's more getting into essay writing, so for the purposes of this presentation, I didn't want to go too far down that line, but that's certainly something that I might cover in another presentation in the future. So try to have your references if you can. It's just good professional practice. It's against the law to plagiarize. Sometimes you can get in big trouble, so it's better if you can. Why not? If you've used other people's work, why not give them credit for it? So thanks for listening. If you've liked this video, please like us so that we know that it's popular. Knowing that you guys want this sort of stuff inspires us to work more on this sort of stuff. Subscribe if you want to keep in contact and learn and know about all of our future content as we post it. And if you have any questions or want to have a chat, leave a comment in the discussion. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.